Hello, everyone. It's me again, here to talk about um, Ludwig Wittgenstein's picture theory of language. Um, Sorry, it's been a little bit late. Had a little bit of stuff going on crazy with wedding, everything. So before I go into that, I'll just give a little bit of a background on Wittgenstein and just kind of his background, where he came from, and also his philosophical journey. So to begin, Wittgenstein was born on April 26, 1889, in Vienna, Austria, to a very, very wealthy family. Their wealth and affluence came from industry, and they were well situated in all the social circles around Austria. He had close associations with Frege and Bertrand Russell, who both encouraged him to continue to work on uh, philosophy and the foundations of logic. And um, he was a bit peculiar in little personality quirks that he had. But even though he was odd or erratic in behavior, he was profound in his philosophical investigations. Now, during World War One, he was taken captive while serving in the Austrian army and wrote the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus during this captivity in the prison camp, which is pretty impressive. Once written and published, he returned, shared it with everyone, and said, "That's it. I've solved philosophy," and withdrew, and essentially retired from philosophical world, and went on to attempt other professions as gardening and whatnot. Um, 10 years later, however, he returned to academia and underwent several changes in his understanding of logic and philosophy, which led to his eventual rejection of all dogmatic philosophy, including his very own Tractatus. Now, the Tractatus itself is the only book that he ever wrote. He published many papers and articles and pamphlets, but the Tractatus is the only full legitimate book that he ever published, and is surprisingly small considering its depth and influence that it had on people around him. It only comes in at about 75 pages, depending on the edition you have. The Tractatus begins with, "The facts are everything that is the case," which I take it to mean the only facts that we have are the ones that are visible and that we can see that exist. And it ends with, "Whereof we cannot speak, thereof we must remain silent," which again I take to mean there's no use in talking or theorizing about things that we cannot speak of or understand, so forget it. Now, the body of the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus, in which is found the picture theory of language, it is an attempt to give an account of the world. And in the Tractatus, Wittgenstein asserts that the world consists of arrangements of simple objects into facts. So, for example, a picture doesn't speak 1,000 words, it's more of like one word per image. Um, he uses the example of toy cars arranged in a way to recreate a car accident. Um, and here I will use these elephants. So, if we were to say that I went on a safari in Africa and was trying to tell someone about the line of elephants that I saw walking through the desert, or I don't actually know what the climate or environment's called, but we'll go with desert, going through um, the area, we'll say, um, I could use these figurines to replicate the line of elephants that were walking through the area. But of course, that does not mean that these elephants, these figurines of elephants, were the actual elephants that I saw out in Africa. It'd be completely irrational to even assert so. So these are merely objects that represent the idea of the elephants that I saw during my safari. And logic and language is a similar thing. Later on in that Tractatus, Wittgenstein attempts to give an account of logic and language to kind of replicate, again, that picture theory. And he says that language succeeds in representing facts by picturing them. So all these words that we have are not the actual things that we see, but they help us to have an idea of what's going on using relational propositions. So in the proposition, logical proposition, capital R A B, the object A bears a certain relation R to the object B, kind of like a mathematical equation, if you will. So ordinary sentences such as dinner's on the table are equivalent to giant sentences, perhaps something like the dinner that I cooked is set on the table that your mother got us for our wedding last year. And it is kind of a way of showing also just the way that these giant sentences consist of simple propositions and the words or, am, and not. Well, it's not really a way of showing that those are there, but I guess it's more of they consist of those things in general. So these giant sentences, as I just said, consist of those words, but the simple propositions and basic objects to which they relate. Now, it's not actually clear as to what these objects or propositions are, much like the majority of Wittgenstein's language and logic theories to me. Um, but he did have a huge influence on the way that we look at logic and philosophy today. At least, if not today, then for sure the 40s and the 20th century in general. So to reiterate, Wittgenstein's picture theory of language likes words and sentences to abstract pictures that are meant to resemble or picture a possible situation, but are clearly not the actual situation. Remember the elephants, or, for example, my name is Alex, but I am not my name. My name is a representation or phrase that refers to the person that I am and conjures up a picture of me in the minds of those who know me, whether for better or for worse. So one interesting fact that may be kind of fun to include in is that even though Wittgenstein was so influential, wildly influential even to the people around him, and he amassed almost a cult following behind him, Wittgenstein did not ever wish to be a grand leader, though he was a charismatic and dynamic person. For example, he even, like as I said earlier, for example, he turned down that position at Cambridge and left when he said he followed, or I'm sorry, that he had solved philosophy. Um, he actually once advised all of those um, people behind him that even though he became a philosopher because he was tormented by the questions that philosophy brought up in his mind, it was best for people to not become philosophers, which is very interesting. Not something that you hear very often, especially not something that you would hear in most academic circles today, whose bread and butter comes from people enrolling in their classes. So I hope that was informational in some way, and that you're able to benefit in some slight way, and at least know a little bit more about the picture theory of language, and a little bit more about Ludwig Wittgenstein as well, and how he came to be the way he was. So if you're any more interested in that, feel free, of course, to look up the Tractatus Logico Philosophicus, but don't stop there, because he eventually goes on later on to refute all that he just said. So, yeah, so I'll be posting another video here soon, so look forward to seeing you guys a little bit soon. See ya.